Hi, first grade. This week you'll be working on creating your own article about William Kamkwamba, who we've learned in The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, and we'll get to read another article about his story. So your job this week, by the end of the week, you'll be able to create your own article for a newspaper in school. So I want you to imagine writing a newspaper for school and telling us all about William. Okay, but before you get started, sometimes when we write an essay or when we write a story, we have to bring all of the ideas of what we've learned together and create what's called an outline. So today we're going to practice creating an outline. An outline is a way to organize everything that we've learned, specifically from The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. And then today you'll get to look at the story William's Windmill. Okay, so you're going to take all the ideas from both of these books to create your writing piece. But again, before you start that writing piece, you have to organize all those ideas in an outline. So great writers can organize their ideas for a nonfiction book or an informational book, which is a book that gives you information, good, by making an outline. Okay? So you guys will get to practice creating these outlines before you start your whole writing piece. So an outline anchor chart shows us 5 steps. That means there are 5 things that you need to focus on when creating your outline before you even create it. First, you have to study all the details, okay? So you have to look at all the details inside the stories that you've read. You have to think about, what do all these details mean? You have to decide whether they're important details or maybe details that are not as important. Then you need to start by writing a topic, okay? So your topic will be William Kamkwamba because that's who you're talking about in this from the story, right? And that's what you're going to be writing your article for the newspaper at your school. Step 4 is the meaty part. That means where you get to write all the details that you've learned that you think are super important to include in your writing. So everything that you thought was important in the stories that we've read, you will get to include inside your outline. And you'll get to see an outline that Miss Tracy's created of things that she thought were super important. And the last step is that you need to write the topic again. So you started with talking about William, so you have to end it talking about William. Okay, whenever you start your story, you need to introduce what you're talking about. And then at the end, you need to close and say, kind of bring everything together to close the story. Okay, so we're going to get to practice that in our outline too, because the outline needs to be organized in a way where it's going to help us create our writing piece. So the first book that we've already read, and a lot of you I saw got to join on our movie day last week, we got to watch The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. So from the book, from the movie, some of the things that we've learned are the following. So in the story, we learned at the beginning, what's going on is that there's no rain in the village. And when there isn't any rain in the village, what happens? Good crops, vegetables, fruits aren't growing. What do you think happens if there's no food? People are hungry. So another word for that is starving. That means that they really want food. They really need food, right? Just like you get to eat food every day. People in this story were suffering because they weren't able to have that, but they have that. Some of us get every day, right? And then William thought of a solution. We learned that he started to build a windmill. With this, it created electricity and it pumped water. And again, if there is no water, no crops can grow. But if there is water, then that means that crops can grow again. Good. So we had crops grew again. So these were some of the details that we learned from reading the story, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. And you might have also seen some of these details in the movie that we got to see. Now we do have another article that tells a little bit about the story as well in a different perspective and a different point of view. That is called William's Windmill. So today we're going to get to explore that story a little bit more before we can collect some evidence or ideas from the story. Remember, the first step is we got to study all the details in our stories and decide what they mean. So right now we were able to collect some details from the boy who harnessed the wind, and we realized that the crops not growing was due to the lack of water. So once they had water, it meant that there was crops being able to grow again. So now we have to look at William's Windmill so that we can understand the details of that story. William's Windmill. William Kamkwamba grew up in Malawi. Malawi is a country in Africa. When William was a boy, his village had a problem. There was no rain. And that's something that I saw in the other story, remember? So you can be showing me a silent me too if you think you remember seeing or hearing that in the previous story. Food could not grow. Most people in the village were farmers. Many people were hungry. So it's giving us a lot of those details that we've learned in The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. We learned that food couldn't grow because there wasn't enough water and people were very hungry. William went to the library. He read science books. Ooh, and I remember him going to the library looking for books about windmills, right? And trying to learn a little bit more about what he could do. He learned that windmills are machines. They can change wind power into electrical power. So windmills are using air or wind, and this wind is being able to power electricity. So when it's moving, it creates electricity and it's able to power that through the windmill. William learned that windmills could pump water that could help his village grow food. So while the windmills are able to get that electricity, they're able to convert that movement also into water. So if they're able to pump water and there's no rain, they can use that water kind of like it's raining, but through the windmill to be able to help the crops grow. William's windmill idea helped solve his village's problem. Good, now we can go back, and now since we've learned already more about this William's Windmill story, we can now add what we've learned so far, the important facts and evidence that we collected from our story. So we learned that he lived in Malawi, just like we learned in the book, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. We learned that people had no food. We also learned that William read and learned about windmills. And then William helped his village. So very similar to The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, we learned a lot of the similar things. So now that we have all of our evidence, we now need to take our most important parts that we want to focus on when we're writing. So I want to focus on the fact that crops didn't grow and people were starving, they didn't have any food. These are some of the details that are super important in the stories. First, we need to identify the problem, right? Crops aren't growing. And then why aren't they growing? What's the effect of that? People were starving, people didn't have food. And then what happened was William really wanted to help, so he started to read and learn about windmills. And then he eventually, we learned in The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, he built a windmill. And then what happened? Crops started to grow again. So now I get to create my outline. My topic, again, was William Kamkwamba. So I need to start first with my topic. And one of our important details that we circled was that no crops were growing due to the lack of water, and people are hungry. William read and learned about windmills, and then he got to build his own windmill. After that, the crops began to grow again. And when we close, we need to bring it all together and say what William was able to do, right? In the end, William was able to create windmills which helped pump water, and this water helped crops grow again, which meant that people were going to be able to eat again. So that is our outline for today. Great job today, first grade. Bye.